Hi, this is Stephen, and this is Astro Indicator Update, Excursions into Practical Astrology, and this is episode 26. The date is January 8th, after the markets closed. And the title of this episode is Market Updates, Mars, Trump, and USA Astro. So today we're going to look at the price charts with the astrology key dates that are coming up, as we usually do, and then we'll look at a couple charts, astrology charts for Trump and his transits, and also the transits of the USA, because next week could be a very interesting week. Here's the Dow Jones Industrials. As I've described in the past, I combine the astrology with standard technical analysis elements. And in this chart of the Dow, you can see I've drawn a channel line here where it's moving back and forth. I've drawn in these blue support and resistance areas that are obvious. We have momentum indicators, RSI and MACD down below, that are generally speaking kind of on the little bit overbought territory. But all the vertical lines relate to the astrology. Now, it gets tricky when you get into markets that are highly manipulated, like the Dow Jones Industrials. However, normally something significant tends to happen, a change in trend, a strong, price movement, things of that order. And if we look at what's going on today, and if I can describe what's coming up, for example, today was usually, when I look at history, is a abnormally bullish day. It didn't really appear that way. Maybe it showed up relative to what's going on in Iraq and Iran. It was unusually bullish. And that energy may continue, oddly enough, given the world events, because when we look at what's going on, let me look at my notes here. I'm kind of doing this in the dark. When we look into the January 16th, January 17th, which would be, today is the 8th, that would be end of next week. These lines right here, if I can draw them in, these lines historically are bullish days as well. So we'll just have to see what happens. We may have such threatening events take place next week that it'll offset and override these bullish tendencies that I'm speaking about. But we do have some bullish energy in the astrology continuing in the Dow until the end of the month, and then it starts to wane. Okay, let's look at our gold chart. Gold's had a big move, and will it continue? Well, as I described last week, if we get a move above that resistance area, I felt the astrology coming up over the next several weeks was strong enough that it would stay above that line. Several dates in the past were strong astrology dates that pushed us through that resistance area. Even going back in December, we've had some strong dates. Starting back here, these were strong astrology dates, and they kind of changed our trend. We broke out of this declining channel, and now we're in a distinct uptrend. The astrology looks good. Again, we have to combine everything: fundamentals, geopolitics, technicals, astrology, and so forth. But we do, if you just want the astrology report, we do have a continuation even into Monday of next week, Wednesday of next week, 13th and 15th. These should support this rally, and we should go higher. We have to tie it into everything else, so let's just see. But that's the forecast with gold. With silver, tomorrow should be an interesting day and should give us some idea whether silver is going to stay up here, because this could just be what's called a back test. A back test is when you've broken through a resistance area, and rather than just continuing, frequently the market will come back and hit that area and sort of establish support there. We'll see if that happens. We'll probably see if that happens tomorrow. And we have some bullish energy tomorrow astrologically, and that is represented by these vertical lines. Okay, looking ahead in silver does not have the same degree of bullish energy that gold has, so it may be a follower if gold continues to rally. But at the end of the month, January 28th and 29th, those are dates out here, and those are dates to look at in silver. Bitcoin, also in rally mode. It's in my book, it's a little bit hard to know, to directly say it's related to the tensions in the Middle East. Because if you've been tracking my podcast, these previous dates were all strong astrology dates, and they set a foundation. So we've got kind of a double bottom going there. This line was not as strong. In fact, I hadn't drawn it in a couple weeks ago. I drew it in a few days, really and truly, after my podcast, because it just sometimes you get multiple astrology indicators that are not, let's say, grade A in strength, but the fact that they're happening within a day or two of each other seems to, create a similar effect, and that's what we had just on the 4th and 5th. But in combination, we were looking at a triple bottom here and a breakout of this channel, which is very strong. We may have a pullback, kind of a back test, similar to what I was talking about in gold coming up. And let me look at the dates coming up on January 16th, January 19th. Those are days to look at in Bitcoin. And then it definitely gets stronger like on February 1st. Way out here, it's represented by these lines. So we'll have to see. We want to see a bounce off of this former resistance area. And if we can get over to the 16th, my bet is that opinion is that we're going to go higher here. So finally, we'll look at the U.S. dollar. And the dollar is... has dropped a lot, but just because of the geopolitical tensions, the threat of war, people have been moving into gold, and they tend to move into the dollar. And just today, the 8th of January, we had quite a strong astrology energy happening, and we've seen a move up. Looking ahead, there isn't that much until we get into January 23rd, which is out here, I believe. I think that's the 23rd, that vertical line. So, I think we could get a bump maybe all the way up to this area. I use a proxy. This is US dollar, but I'm using an ETF UUP. And so, I think ultimately the dollar is heading down, gold is heading up. But we may get some, churning and sideways trading going on in these markets to work off some of their oversold, overbought energies. So let's look at what's going on here, particularly with Trump and his he attacked an Iranian general in Iraq. This happened last Thursday morning. It happened January 2nd, Thursday in the morning. I didn't get a specific time. I have 7 a.m. here. And if you know anything about this, is Trump's natal chart in the middle. Okay, the middle ring, the position of the planets on January 2nd, so the outer ring. And lo and behold, even though it doesn't surprise me, on that day exactly, we have the transit of Mars exactly squaring his ascendant, to the degree, 29 Leo, 29 Scorpio. So he was most aggressive, most impulsive, most heightened sense of of um, of being assertive or whatever. This was just a perfect day to challenge Trump to do something in the Middle East and to give a green light and go ahead to do this. And he did. And I think it was just a huge mistake that, we haven't seen the end of. So anyway, that's what happened on January 2nd. And then looking ahead to this weekend and into next week for Trump. So things have moved ahead, but what's happening is that for everyone in the whole world, we have this confluence of a lot of planets at 22 degrees Capricorn. You see them all lined up here. The Sun, Pluto, Saturn, Mercury. So if anyone has something major in their natal chart at 22 degrees, it's likely being intensified over the next week. And Trump has his sun, natal sun, at 22 degrees Gemini. So this is affecting his ego. It's affecting his sense of, how he identifies himself and sees himself. And again, I think this is extremely challenging and could be, even in some respects, it's like a life or death decisions he's making at this point. And so I'm very concerned about what will be going on in the world next week. We'll see, we're going to look at the USA chart next, and we see this combination of planets, impacting that chart as well. But the fact that it's so exactly 150 degrees away from his sun is that he may stay in this sort of action-oriented mode towards amplifying things. I hope I'm wrong. The one thing, even on Sunday, see, this is Sunday, we have the moon crossing over his Mars on Sunday. The one factor that is modifying this to a more reasonable, peaceful orientation is that, I just went backwards, is that his Venus is on his descendant. So there's slight energy that would be helping him pull back and be a little bit more reasonable. So I accidentally clicked ahead here. Now we're looking at the USA chart for next week, and this is next Monday. But we have that combination of planets from Pluto, Saturn, Sun. Sun has moved along to 23 degrees, and Mercury, all essentially opposite the USA Mercury. On top of that, which is most concerning, is that on this day, on Monday the 13th, we have Mars crossing over the USA ascendant. And right now, this it's hard to be specific and exact, but this would be a clear potential possible indicator for the U.S. to be attacked or the U.S. to go on, the offensive to even a greater extent. And I feel that the Mercury in the USA chart, it deals with a lot of things, but deals with the financial markets, it deals with our media, and it deals with our intelligence community. And all these things are in a massive period of transformation and change and challenge. And when it comes to the intelligence community, hopefully things that they have been doing covertly will come more and more into the light, and there's that potential in this chart. But next week is a very ominous, astrologically, a very ominous week for an amplification of of hostilities in the world. So I hope, cooler heads prevail. So just a picture of Hermes, which is Mercury. Hermes, for Greek god of Mercury. Um, it's the god of messenger god of transportation, of commerce, things of that nature. It's also represented sort of the trickster, and so people could be deceived, and Mercury has an element of deception attached to it as well. So that's it for today. Hopefully you'll get this on January 9th. And again, my name is Stephen. I have a background in art and psychology. I've been studying astrology for 40 years, applying to the financial markets for 25. And I do sometimes do consulting. You can reach me at astroindicator@gmail.com. So that's it. I do this irregularly, approximately every 2 weeks. If you'd like to get notified of my videos, please subscribe and all that. So thanks for listening. Best wishes.